Happy February, everyone. You can see here at the clearing we are lacking in snow. We're supposed to get some on Thursday or Friday, but we've had a very little snow this winter compared to most places, so we're anxious. We're going to talk about some outstanding trees at the clearing again today, and we're going to start with this wonderful basswood, which is just behind on the west side of the linen room at the south end of campus. And it's a classic basswood. Multiple trunks. You almost always see basswoods with multiple trunks, including these little basal sprouts. These all came from a basal sprout at one time, and often you'll see a bunch of them around the tree. But they continue to perpetuate themselves with these basal sprouts. So the mother trunk or trunks can die, but they're always sending up new sprouts at the base to grow a new tree. So the root system can be very, very old, but any above ground part is younger than the root system. And this is classic, and this is just a beautiful specimen. Basswood's also called American linden. Some people claim that the best honey comes from linden flowers. Bees just go crazy for lindens when they're in bloom. Also wood carvers love this tree. The person behind the camera would attest to that. It's considered a hardwood, but it's kind of a softer hardwood, carves easily. Usually people that carve with basswood are painting their work after. It doesn't have a real strong grain, but very much a favorite among wood carvers. But this is the nicest one on the clearing property. There's a nice one by the schoolhouse too, but this is really a dandy. Basswood or American linden. Now this tree right here in front of Martha's cabin may not look outstanding, but it's a descendant almost certainly of the most famous tree in clearing history, the butternut tree that used to sit behind us over between the lodge and the west storm that was damaged in that famous 1937 lodge fire and then left to regrow. It did, and then fell down in June of 1975, I think it was. So this is almost certainly a descendant of that butternut tree. There used to be another one over there closer to room number 7 in the east dorm, and so that one may have come from the original. This one came from that one. So it's one of only a few butternuts around. We've got one little larger one right behind the lodge, and there's a small one in front of the Jansen Center, just came up. Butternuts have suffered from a fungal canker disease since the 1970s, and there used to be a lot of them around. There are not many anymore. But this one is surviving and doing well. It was just a small tree when I first came here 21 years ago. It's grown quite a bit, and we're tickled to have a butternut tree again at the clearing on Central Campus like the old one. This is another famous tree for wood carvers, and Eric again could attest to this. While people like basswood for painted work, painted wood carving, this is a one that has just a beautiful grain. Still carves easily, carves nicely, but it has a gorgeous grain. So this is butternut wood, which is harder to find these days, is a real treasure for wood carvers. Anyway, this is, I like to think of it anyway as a descendant of our famous butternut tree at the clearing, and it's great to have one right here on Central Campus, butternut. Close cousin to walnut, by the way. I like to refer to the butternut tree we just talked about before as the most famous tree at the clearing in our history, but that tree's gone. This might be the most famous existing living tree. This is the Hawthorn at the clearing, down on the lodge meadow, between the meadow and the water, or the lodge and the water. And this was almost certainly planted by Jensen. Hawthorns don't get to be huge trees, but they can live a long time. Hawthorns are confusing to identify because they hybridize so readily in the wild, but I've thought, looking at this in the past, that it's a type of hawthorn called a dotted hawthorn. But again, they hybridize, so you never know for sure. Hawthorns are famous for their very horizontal branching habit, very architectural, beautiful branching habit. They have white flowers in spring. They produce little red, like apples. They're a palm like an apple, but they're small. Birds eat them. But it's the architecture of the hawthorns that are the key feature, and they really come into their own during winter like this one. And it's nice, people see this looking down the lodge meadow. I've always thought it was ironic that the clearing's logo is a hawthorn tree, a non-native tree in Door County. Jensen, who was the champion of native plants, loved this and used it in all of his work down in the Chicago area and around that area. And this brought this symbol with him to the clearing, and obviously wanted a hawthorn at the clearing, so planted this one in the lodge meadow. So this is a dotted hawthorn, the famous hawthorn at the clearing. Here's the largest white ash on the property. It didn't used to be. We had one larger than this right in front of the lodge, but it was in such bad shape we had it taken down maybe about 10 years ago. So this is the champion white ash here now. It's right at the southwest corner of the campus parking lot, just east of the East Dorm. Classic bark of a white ash, kind of ridged and furrowed. You can make out some diamond patterns here and there. This is an easy one to identify by its bark. Once you look at them enough, you can tell them from 50 yards away. We're worried about our white ash and the emerald ash borer. We saw some signs on one at the clearing a few weeks ago, further south on the property. Sister Bay's full of it now, so it's just creeping its way north and spreading around by people hauling firewood around. So it is inevitable that we'll lose our white ash at the clearing. Many of them will just let stand and fall, but if they're near a building or a trail or a parking lot, we'll have to cut them down. And this one is right next to the parking lot and our utility wires just to the east here, so this will have to be taken down when it gets infested with the borer, which is too bad because this is such a nice tree. So white ash here at the campus parking lot. Over here on the edge of the Niagara Escarpment, just north of the Council Ring, looking at one of the many outstanding arborvitae or white cedar that grow along the edge. Many of them, like this one, right at the edge, and someday it'll fall in. But they are just spectacular specimens and very old. The oldest trees in North America, east of the Rocky Mountains, are the arborvitae growing along the Niagara Escarpment. We aged a few of them 2 falls ago, I think it was. Roger Coons and my daughter and Brian, our maintenance man, Brian Bukos, and I did, it's called an increment borer. It's a little less than a pencil with thickness, kind of a drill that you try to hit the center of the tree, the core of the tree, then you pull that core out and carefully count the rings. And we had a couple that were in the 500-year-old range. We're quite sure there are some older here yet. The oldest ones that have been aged, and this is up in Ontario on the escarpment, on this same geologic feature, were I think 1,800 years old. So these are ancient trees, real treasures, natural history treasures. And they just have this beautiful architecture. Again, the way they hang on the edge is just, they kind of defy gravity. And again, they can live for hundreds of years. And we at the clearing are lucky to have about 1/3 of a mile stretch of the escarpment that's just lined with these ancient trees. So they are a real treasure to us. So arborvitae, or white cedar here along the Niagara Escarpment.